Inclusionary zoning,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then next year, if we have free cash, then you fund it. But at least, like, like you guys are saying, you have to put something into it this year. I agree with that.
I'm just worried that 50, it may be a while, because I think when we get money from developers for different projects, you could be looking at a lag time of a couple of years. So if we start the trust with a good amount right now, then they can really get going quickly, and they can start working. This, because we have some real experts in this area on the trust, but they're almost powerless right now to do anything other than do some preliminary setting up, deciding on goals. But they can't really do anything until they have some resources to work with. So if you ask for 50,000 and you wait for a developer to,
Understood, but what I would
it might be 2 or 3 or 4 years away.
What I'd like to hear, Katie, is I'd like to get some sort of a narrative from your trust, from your group, Tom, as to what you do with the money. Give us specific examples. Give us 5 or 6 examples. If we had 500,000, we could do these 5 things. We could get started immediately with this or this. But right now we're putting 500,000 into an account, and we've no idea what it's going to be used for. What you do, but we don't.
A lot of it is because we, as a trust, we're going to have no employees to administer programs. What a lot of it will be is deciding on specific things, and maybe put out what's called a NOFA, a Notice of Fund Availability, to people that we have this amount of funding that we're looking to generate this kind of program and accept proposals. But it could be down payment assistance. It could be rehab loans. For lower income families. With an affordability clause in it. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you could do to improve properties, help people stay in their properties, because it's not only necessarily marketing new properties to affordable people, but we have a lot of elderly in the town that certainly meet that definition of affordable.
But that's great. I mean, I love hearing this now. If we could get something written out like that, those are good examples. So,
yep.
For example, if an elderly person can't pay their property taxes, could we loan them money or give them?
You could do either.
We can give them money.
Well,
to help pay it.
Yes and no. I mean, I got to couch that a little bit, because helping them pay their real estate taxes, I'm not sure.
I'm giving you an example. Like, it could be their insurance bill on their house. Just to stay in the town, they can't afford the insurance.
Yeah, and again, I'm not 100% positive, but you'd need some kind of what you want in return when you do those is some kind of a restriction on some kind of a deed restriction on the house to maintain it as
I'll go along with the vote tonight. I will, but I'm saying when we go sit in front of the Warren Committee, we should definitely have some sort of a bullet point as to
how this
money
And the trust is going to have
Yeah.
meetings coming up in the winter, so they can maybe Tom, you can bring that to them to
Right.
put together a list. And again, we should keep in mind, it's a request, so.
Understood. I understand it.
But I think we're sending a message to the Warren Committee and to town meeting and to the town that the Planning Board and the Board of Selectmen view affordable housing and the expansion of it in Milton as a priority. And this is one way to jumpstart the conversation and to jumpstart the effort.
Yep.
So
I want people out in the public to know how they can actually utilize this money. How they can apply for it, how they can qualify for it.
Well, the trust can help us with that.
Right.
Correct.
We can get at least ideas. I mean, without having voted on anything, these are the kinds of things that could be done.
Exactly.
Sure.
And that would be very helpful.
Okay. So the motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion? And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. On the topic of one-time monies that we might want to seek, do you want to report on the fire stations? Or other things from the Capital Committee?
Yeah, the Capital Committee's discussed. I mean, we're definitely going to put forward, and at least the emergency repairs for the fire station is going to be part of it. We were waiting for that.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry, I didn't make that clear.
So, yeah, so there definitely are, I guess we got a report that there's some 200,000+ of repairs that really should be made right away, and another 200,000 of repairs that probably should be made, but aren't pressing, or as pressing, I guess.
Is this in all 3 stations, Tom?
I just glanced at the thing, I haven't really read it that carefully. But in addition to that, we don't have a lot of room in that bonding cap that we've set, the 1.9%. So a lot of what we're going to be recommending this year for capital improvements are going to be from one-time money.
And I'm glad you're doing that, because that's what the capital committee used to do. And for the last few years, it seems to have just become a bonding committee,
right.
which wasn't the original goal. I mean, I remember articles for $100,000, and it included small little items, a door on the library, some windows on another building, and they were all funded out of free cash. So
Yep.
I'm glad to see the capital committee going back and looking
Right.
at
Yeah, what
not just bonding, but
what happened
looking
over a
at
period of time is somehow
one-time money.
that started to float to the warrant committee, which was never the intention. And so it's trying to pull it back, and town meeting's intention was for a committee to look at all capital needs and set priorities, and we have done that this year. We've come up with a ranking sheet of for priorities, being public safety number 1, and then going down the line and trying to prioritize, and having a bunch of different things to look at in terms of how to recommend, because there's never going to be enough money to fund all the projects that come before you. So we have done a lot in that. So we will need an article for spending of one-time money for capital needs, which will include the fire station, fire stations. And the other thing that, there's a couple other things, well, there's one other thing on capital needs that I had discussed it with John Flynn. The capital committee's been discussing it, and it's my plan, and I know you can't really talk about bonding, but we're talking about bonding in the abstract, not, but it would
Well, we're
be,
talking about articles.
Yeah,
So is this an article that you're submitting?
it would be an article, and it may not come to fruition because it's still kind of exploratory, but we think we want to at least have it out there so that it can make the January 6th, and that would be we know we need a new DPW facility, we know we need new fire stations, and we know that it's going to cost several $1 million. Probably not a school building committee project, not that size, but certainly a lot bigger than, other than that, probably the biggest thing we've ever spent. And how are we going to fund it? And it's never going to get funded within the tax rate. It's going to have to be a debt exclusion. What's happening right now is we have, in debt exclusion, debt service payments, they're at about 2.8 million right now, and they're falling. So if we let them fall, people's tax rates go down year after year after year, and then if at the time we want to do the fire station or the DPW facility, we do the override vote, we get it, and the tax rates spike back up again. So to pay new debt service. So rather than do that and giving us the ability to perhaps do those projects a little earlier, if we were to go to the voters and say, we will guarantee never to raise your debt exclusion debt service payment, so therefore what you have to pay for your debt exclusion override tax dollars beyond the level of, say, FY16's debt service payment. So we'll just say 2.8 million, that we'll never ask you for more than $2.8 million in a year for the next X years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever it might be. That's the size of it. But as the debt service payments go down year after year, rather than reducing your tax bill, we want to put that money into a special stabilization fund so that when we do these big projects and the debt spikes up again, we can use that money to keep the debt service level and their override number at that $2.8 million number. So that's the idea of it.
So the capital committee is going to be submitting that article?
Yeah, and we're going to need, obviously, town council to help us, because it's going to be a complicated one.
Is the article to create the stabilization fund or to
The article's going to be a
approve
home
the-
rule petition.
Okay.
Because it would have to be a home rule petition. And then it's probably going to have to be a vote, a townwide vote, too, because you're dealing with debt exclusion.
So it's not to create the stabilization fund, that might come later?
That would, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but to get the home rule petition out to the legislature to get them to approve it, and then to get it on the ballot after that happens, because I'm sure we're going to need both.
So we got 3 articles coming from the capital committee.
And then the only other article that I know of, and that has nothing to do with capital committee, but we've been batting around what to do with the long-term lease on the skating rink. And a couple of things have transpired recently. The park department has shown some interest, and we're doing some exploratory right now in terms of the park department taking over that role of, call it manage, if you will, the skating rink, if we can get a long-term lease on it. They do have interest. If we're going to do it, it would probably not, I mean, Curry, we're hoping will still be a tenant, and will still have some role, but the park department would take the bulk of the role in terms of running the rink. In order to do that, I think we have to do that through an enterprise fund. So the article would be to just establish an enterprise fund for the operations of the skating rink.
Okay.
So to pull that off in the long run, I mean, giving us the ability to have an enterprise fund is one thing. Then we've got to convince the state to allow us to charge rates that would allow the skating rink to break even. Get a 25-year lease,
Yep.
make some commitment to put some major capital improvements into the rink. I mean, there's a lot that's going to go.
That's beyond the scope
That's
of the
beyond the
article,
scope of the
but the article would just be to do an
Establish
enterprise
an
fund.
enterprise fund, right.
Okay. Are there other articles that, Anne Marie, that you have on your list that we?
Swift Hat House article?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Swift Hat House. So we have 2 articles drafted from last August, and we had put them in the fall and then taken them out. I believe the research is, the
Getting closer,
town
isn't it?
council is, yeah, and the planning director, and now we have some assistance for the planning director, so maybe we really need that to be completed before we can decide whether to submit these articles. So I'm not sure that we should vote them tonight, but I know there's a lot of interest in trying to move forward with that on this board.
Right. I mean, the one thing we do know with the Swift Hat House is if we're going to save it, we've got to do something fairly soon.
Yes.
I do know
Yes.
if we may possibly need fiscal 15 appropriation to the reserve fund if we end up using the money to demolish the Hendry's. The money that's in there this year, we may be using most of that to demolish Hendry's, so I didn't know if we needed a supplemental appropriation
To
for the
replenish
reserve.
it?
Yeah. Yes.
Might.
I think we might. And
We could put it as a,
Yeah.
put it in, we can always take it out.
Yeah, I know we talked at the last meeting about articles that, we put in and we might not know whether we need them or not, but I think this is one of those cases where it may be that we reopen the warrant at a later date to take that article out, but that's just reflects the fact that things happen in real time, and
Yep.
we submit things in January and things can change by May,
Right.
so.
Right.
We could leave it in
So-
and have no appropriation if things change too,
Right.
and we don't use the money to demolish the Hendry's building.
So are we in support of submitting that article?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I think it makes sense.
Tom, did you want to talk a little bit about using free cash to supplement the Chapter 90 shortfall
I
in
think-
capital as
I think
well?
if we do that, that's going to be part of the capital.
Capital?
That would mean one-time money's being used for roads?
Yeah,
Okay.
because again, that's a capital need.
There may be the potential for an article for the Safe Routes to Schools program. We might need to take right-of-ways in the front of the homes there. John Thompson is working on that project now, and he will consult with John Flynn on that, so that
Is
maybe
that
an
going to happen
additional
in this
article.
fiscal year, or, and are those the kinds of right-of-ways that we basically passed the article in October for?
I don't believe so. I asked that question, and John Thompson didn't think they were, but he is consulting with John Flynn now, and he will give us a report on it after
Okay.
he gets those answers. But that may be a possibility, so I wanted to put it out there.
And we'll resubmit the easement article from...
The easement
fall.
article.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah. And presumably in the same form that we eventually agreed to in October.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else? Any
Those
other
are all the
articles?
articles that I had on my list, Madam
Can't think of any
Chair.
others. Okay, then, so we'll take this back up again on January 6th.
Yes.
Okay, we've already acted on number 14. The next item is boards and committee appointments for the sign review committee.
Okay, I will move to approve the reappointment of John Zykowitz, Raymond Thill, and Lawrence Johnson to the Sign Review Committee to serve through December 2015.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we are working on arranging a meeting, hopefully in January, with the sign review committee at one of our meetings.
Yes.
We're on to the town administrator's report.
I do not have a report this evening.
And I have nothing under the chair's report. Does anyone have anything to report?
Nothing to report?
The only thing I wanted to mention, because of a little bit of feedback from the last meeting, is the discussion we had on budgets at the last meeting, and it got a little bit heated. And I just want to make sure that everybody understood that, and not mistake passion for anger, I guess. And the whole process of budgeting is one that's really passionate, I'm really passionate about. And
We can tell.
you know, I wasn't, the remarks weren't meant to be disparaging to the town administrator, because she works very, very hard. And it's just kind of a frustration that that concept of trying to pull together and take a global look at the budgets and take more control at the town level, as opposed to just dumping everything on the warrant committee, is just so slow to happen that it just gets very frustrating. And just that approach to budgeting, to, you know, tell me a story. If we're going to reduce something, how are we going to get there? I just want to know, you know, how we're going to do it. So it wasn't meant to be disparaging. It was just meant to be passionate.
Yes, I know you're very passionate.
I just want to make sure everybody understands that.
I think that's a process that, to get to that budget approach, will take us probably a couple of cycles to get through. We'll get there eventually.
Yes.
but
Hopefully.
it's-
We're working on it.
Sometimes
We
things
need
move
some-
slowly, and more slowly than we'd like, but
Don't I know it?
do we have anything for citizen speak response? Future agenda items?
None I can think of.
And before we adjourn, I just want to make sure I wrote a note to myself to wish everyone, all the viewers, the town employees, and all of our residents a Happy Hanukkah, a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year, because we will not be back until
Yes,
January the 6th. So happy holidays to everyone.
same for me.
And do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. No executive session tonight.